Are you coming to the tree where they strung up a man? They say murder three. Strange things that happen here. How stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree?
Welcome to Strange Things, broadcasting from the Raimundo Rios Mayo Library in Arkansas. And welcome to Strange Things. This is season number 2, episode 2, January 14th, 2017. With me tonight is Bryan Impey. He was born January 15th, 1969. He grew up in the Mississippi Gulf Coast area. Attended the University of South Alabama in Mobile. Looks like you're having a birthday tomorrow.
It would seem. And, I guess you already told the date, so I can't say I'm turning 30 or 35 or something. So
wait till you get to be 58.
Well, there you go.
I've
been around the block.
I predict the weather as it changes.
There you go.
His wife.
I think it's going to get cold, but
yes,
I think it's not going to quite reach us. But there you go.
Well, you live 500 miles north of me,
yeah,
about 500.
Yeah, we might get 5 degrees or something.
Well, his wife is Shannon, who grew up in New Orleans, Louisiana. When she was young, she had heard stories about the Rougarou, a legend told to kids, as in, don't go out in the dark by yourself, parent kind of thing. Bryan has a daughter, Sarah, 15, and a son, Nicholas, who is 9. Currently, they live in Texas.
And it's kind of interesting. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Currently they live in Texarkana, Texas, north of the legendary Falk, Arkansas, which we are going to be talking about a lot tonight. So now it's your turn if you want to tell us anything about your family or your home life there.
Well, it's kind of funny, as much as people grow up and have old wives' tales or whatever, it's pretty real down there in the New Orleans area, which really you can consider anywhere from Baton Rouge to Slidell, a little north and all south, on the legend of the Rougarou, and parents truly do use that as a warning, and don't go out at night. The Rougarou is going to get you. So my wife grew up believing in the Rougarou, and and its legend. Obviously, she's not had any sightings or any interactions with all that folklore and all the things that it entails, but she is quite enamored with it. And as far as being up here in Texarkana, she realizes how kind of from here in the mountains all the way down to New Orleans, how quite extensive the legends are. So, and it's kind of funny in a way, and understandable. My son's 9. He is, if he hears the word Bigfoot, he'll potentially have nightmares. My daughter, who's 15, which I'm sure we'll talk about, a footprint that she actually found while we were out kind of hiking around in northwest Texarkana at a certain lake. But she really does like the mystique of it. She's very artistic, so she does little drawings here and there. So it's kind of fun with my family.
Well, I imagine once Nicholas gets a little older, and maybe he'll realize that so far as we know, no one's ever actually been killed by Bigfoot. That It is a rather interesting subject to pursue.
Right, and he's really enamored with Jeff Stewart and how I've got, and that's my best friend, but he's got a lot of land and how we went camping on that land, and the as we'll probably discuss this later in many aspects, but we don't go out Bigfoot hunting. We don't go out Bigfoot anything. We go out camping. Jeff is a great teacher and teaches me and my daughter. We've been out there camping and separately, me and my son. But he's a teacher, and my son is really getting old enough to where he really wants to start. Let's go to Mr. Jeff's and Uncle Jeff's and hunt. So we'll see how that works in the future. But that's how we take the approach of Bigfoot interest. We go out in the land, hiking in nature, and if something happens, it happens. Otherwise, we're enjoying nature. That's how we approach it.
I have noticed that kids that go camping a lot when they're younger, they have far less difficulty in situations like that as they get older. Whereas you get these kids that spend their entire lives in the city, they get off in the dark woods somewhere and they're petrified.
Right.
You come from a family with lots of camping?
No, actually, it's, my wife, I don't know when the midlife crisis is supposed to happen for men or whatever, but she claims I had mine early. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I never did do any of this at all. When I was younger, I grew up on the Mississippi coast. You could practically walk 30 seconds and see water, or another spot we moved to. I lived right in Ocean Springs, Mississippi, right next to Biloxi. There's not too much Bigfoot activity. It's all about alligator, stay away from the alligators and the moccasins and all that. That's what we looked out for. And I had a great interest in Bigfoot and the mystique and the legend, but I didn't feel like I had the opportunity, and my family wasn't hunters. We didn't really go camping. So, no, but lately, 3 or 4 years ago, I've been out to Jeff Stewart's, and oh my gosh, things have opened up in my life, and my wife calls it the midlife crisis. Whatever. It's okay.
How far from the Honey Island where that swamp monster was spotted, how far from that area were you living?
Where I'm living right now?
No, back when you were living in Mississippi.
Oh, actually, Mississippi being so kind of short sideways, it wasn't that far. I mean, hour and a half, 2 hours from the Honey Island swamp monster. And I guess the other way with the swamp ape, I mean, probably 2 to 3, maybe 4 hours. And then it just kind of goes on down all the way to the tip of Florida. So you can also say 15 hours. So,
but it just never sparked your interest back then.
Well, I seem to, being that my family did not camp, did not hunt, did not do anything, it seemed like I was pavement bound and went to the University of South Alabama, and now I realize there are groups and people interested in the Mobile area. Now that I see that, and we have discussions of, I live there, and we talk similar stories of like where they've seen things, and I know exactly where they're talking about. But gosh, when you're going to college, you're not interested. You're hitting the books. So I was mid-20s to late 20s really strung out and not having as much time for this subject as some people might. Because it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't camping. It wasn't in my family's thing to do.
I don't know how true it is, but Matt Moneymaker from Finding Bigfoot was saying that when he went to college to get his law degree, he picked a university that was close to a Bigfoot area so he could go looking. At least that's his story.
Well, I don't know him well enough to know that, but, maybe.
Wonder if he was all that good of a student then.
Say again?
I wonder if he was all that good of a student if he was spending his spare time out looking for Bigfoot instead of reading.
I guess he got his degree, but I don't think I don't know if he got certified or whatever they call that for lawyers. I don't know.
Bar Association. Yeah. Well,
good for him.
He's doing what makes him happy today, and that's what's important.
Right.
Now he's got his kids doing it too.
Right. And you know what? There's a few things that make me squint when I hear Matt talk, and he's an expert and all that. But let's just say I squint. Yes. But there's so many good things that he brings to light, and that's fine. And I couldn't sit here and name them, but with a show and with his interest in BFRO comes a lot of notoriety, and hopefully he doesn't lose that passion. But that whole situation, I felt like, has helped a lot of people. If they had a spark, they had an avenue to at least express it, or maybe somebody will believe me, or at least I can tell somebody. And so good for Matt Moneymaker and what that entails. But he's not an expert, right?
We also have to take into consideration the fact that it's Hollywood, and they're going to tell you do this, you do that. They've got to play the game, or they're not going to get paid for it.
Right, and that's a whole nother show. But Jeff Stewart has had the whole crew on his property, and that I guess the East Texas episode, he went out with Bobo and talked about his sighting, but as Jeff was on these shows, it's funny to watch those shows, because it's like I tell my kids and my wife, see right there, I've camped right there. Yep. Or see that's not really real. That's kind of like a studio somewhere. But that being said, I still camped right there. And me and Nicholas, so where it's hit the fan for him, we've went all up in there, and he's got, between his land and his hunting lease, he's got, I don't know, 800-900 and some acres. I just throw it out there, and he's got less than 1,000 acres, but it's enough to where you can just start walking in any direction. You spin a wheel, just start walking in any direction, and it'll be something different. And that's where he has his sightings. So, and actually, we've had our own little things, and we'll get to that now or whenever you want.
Well, let's take a real quick break and play a couple of commercials for the people that don't want to be left out, and we'll be right back after these important messages. So don't go away.
All right.
You're listening to Arkanasa Radio. Do you have skin? Would you like to take better care of it? Call Lourdes James, independent beauty consultant, and set up an appointment. Call 723-3019. If your vision isn't what it used to be, and you're not sure you're seeing Bigfoot or just your neighbor mowing his lawn, stop on by Del Norte Optical, 107 Calle del Norte, just across the street from the Embassy Suites. You should be able to see what you're looking at. Looking for a great cup of coffee? Swing on by the Organic Man Coffee Truck, 1002 Ederby Day, suite number 7. Not a coffee drinker? They have hot chocolate, hot tea, and sometimes muffins and cookies. It's a great place to meet your friends for a conversation or curl up in the corner with a good book. The Organic Man Coffee Truck. Life is too short to drink bad coffee.
No, don't say goodbye. Stay with us. This is Arkanasa Radio. Quédate con nosotros. Estás escuchando Arkanasa Radio.
You're listening to Strange Things with Chris James. And welcome back. With us tonight is Bryan Impey from Texarkana, and we're talking about Bigfoot, of course. So tell us a little something about your adventures there on Jeff Stewart's property.
Okay. The very first time I went over there, and we actually camped out, and again, it was a big teaching episode of here's how you could live off the land. Look at this is something you could actually eat. Do not touch that. We actually put a painter's tarp, the clear ones you get from any retailers, $2. We found 4 trees and kind of attached them up, and we slept on the ground. Okay,
roughing
that
it.
night. Oh my God! But we cleared a campsite of leaf littered, caught perch with a knife, and he had some string, made a fishing pole. We caught perch and nothing but basically just a little bit for your food. Bottom line is, when we did all that, we're sitting around the campfire. It's dusk, and he's sitting there very relaxed. And this is my first big time out in the woods camping. Okay, so he's sitting down, legs spread out, leaning his back up against a tree. Dusk, very, very light out still, but dusk. And we both toyed with it anywhere from 50 to 100 yards. We're not 100% sure. Behind him was, I didn't have a sighting, but imagine East Texas, and we heard this. And it was kind of reverberating and got louder, and it mimicked a type of an ape-like sound. Okay, so he's lived on this land all his life. This part was his family's land, which was handed down or whatever. He's like, okay, first of all, I did the running man stance of, I was about to bolt. And he said, stop, you might hear it again. And I was like, what is that? And he's like, you know what, just let's just talk. Let's talk about the purse. Let's just talk about things and just be normal like we were before and see if it happens again. And, because we generally just don't do the howls and the Bigfoot howls, whatever. He believes in, which is fine, and I believe in it too, wounded animal sounds, call blasting that way. Be that as it may, we calmly sat there and just started talking, and I calmed down rather than me about to run. And nothing ever happened again. But this thing, they say, it went on for like 10 seconds. It probably went on for maybe 3 seconds. But imagine, something starting low and just being the loudest ape-like sound that you could almost feel in your chest. And it's like, neither one of us, he was facing the other way. I was facing towards it. We couldn't estimate exactly how far, but it couldn't have been no more than 100 yards, maybe 50 yards, hills and valleys. And as far as that goes, it was kind of done. And we talked about it and rehashed it out and thought, he gave me, I'm a guy of the woods, and he's an expert hunter, to say the least. He's like, here's what it's not. Bears don't live here. Bobcats did that down the line. None of these things. His thing to say is, and me too, I'm not an expert in Bigfoot. I'm an expert outdoorsman and of these woods. I can tell you all the things it's not. He leaves it up to me, or what do we think it is? Well, okay. Then, when we're sleeping on the ground, let me take that back. He snuggled up with his cannon of a gun, and I'm over there going, oh my God, because I'm on the ground. It is winter. I know there's no snakes. He's reassured me there's no snakes at that point. They're all cozied up somewhere.
Yeah. You find a snake, he's going to look like a walking stick.
Say again, I'm sorry.
If you find a snake, it's going to be used for a walking stick, because they're not going to be going anywhere.
Right. And the thing about it is, it is pitch dark. The campfire's out. We're in the middle of the woods, like, I don't know, a couple miles in. There's a road probably 400 or 500 yards away, but it's a dirt road to another camp. So it's not really a road, but, so he's snuggling up, snoring, he's comfortable. It's his land. I hear this god-awful scream, which has been described as potentially a panther, which he said well, they say they don't exist, but he's killed one when he was younger. It was a large cat. Had to have been, because of my description, screaming like the dying woman, as that's been described.
It couldn't it have been a fox?
Probably not a. Go ahead.
Could it have been a fox? I know the female fox makes a horrendous sound.
I have too, and meaning I've seen examples on the internet, but again, this was where I wasn't sleeping. I mean, I was staring in the dark, but when I heard this, it reverberated.
Too loud for a
wrong.
fox.
Yeah, because I've heard those nasty fox sounds that for it to be, because it seemed like it was very far away, hundreds and hundreds of yards, but it was so loud. And the entire forest erupted, meaning, coyotes. He said he had wolves on those lands, but a lot of coyotes, owls, and maybe a little something else I heard. But the whole forest erupted. I actually turned my phone on, even though it was videoing, as best as I could. I really didn't get any sound from it. But I described it to him. He's like, yeah, it happens. It's like, to him, it's common somewhat. It's not unheard of. But to me, it was the craziest thing. And as much as anything, it proves that there's a lot of animal activity in those woods, potentially food source. And while during the day, tons of hog evidence, tons of all these different things, and little critters, as they say. So that's kind of what we've done. Some other call blasting with his on different camping trips with his. He's got a call blaster for wounded animals. Again, that's the thing. We have heard some very long distance howls, which again can't be explained, but those other ones were extremely close. So,
in the episode of Finding Bigfoot where they had Jeff Stewart's property, was his the land with all the fish heads stuck on the posts, or is that someone else?
I don't think so. That was. Well, I don't know who that was.
It's been a while since. It's been a while since I saw the episode, and I just remember a certain this, that, and the other, but not the whole show.
Well, he was out there with Bobo, and as much as that call blaster does wounded animals, Jeff is ridiculously awesome with the making animal sounds with his voice. He really can. You just name it, he can do a version of it, or you'd be surprised that it sounds exactly like it. Yep. So that's what he was doing. Bobo was there, and Bobo might have been doing some howls, but Jeff was doing the wounded animal or the animal noises with his mouth, and it was crazy good. So,
well, it was interesting. It was interesting to be able to watch it just simply because they were in a part of Texas where I've been, and that's always nice to see on TV.
Right, and as much as people maybe from a long distance listen to this, and they did give the old common, well, I thought there was tumbleweeds in Texas. Really? There's, the state of Mississippi woods on the east side of Texas. Texas is gigantic. You're talking about out west, but it's got entire states worth of woods and wilderness on the east side.
Yeah, people watch TV and they think Texas looks like that valley out in California where they filmed all the cowboy movies. They don't realize we've got that ginormous, the piney woods. We've got we got trees in the state, so, and water.
Right.
Caddo Lake, amongst others.
Oh, yeah.
Sabine
River, that's where his land and the hunting lease actually butts up against it. And we actually went out there on the Sabine River and done some things, and he's had his sightings, Sabine thing and all that. So,
Can you think of any one item that got you interested in Bigfoot?
Ooh, well, that really took me over the top. And as much as I talk about, Jeff Stewart being my best friend, Lyle Blackburn is a great friend.
Oh, yes.
And I get goosebumps when I talk about Lyle and Jeff and some of my best friends. The Texarkana Comic-Con in 2013, my daughter, we're kind of into comic books. And again, I've always been a Bigfoot enthusiast, and we saw a footprint in May of 2013, took pictures of it, and, okay. Well, we went to the Comic-Con, and they had some seats set up, and Lyle was doing his presentation. Very recently, his Beast of Boggy Creek book had come out, and he was showing some slides, and he got to the Beanfield slide of the three-toed print. And we're, nicely, cordially watching and listening. Oh, we're fascinated. But when we saw that print, me and my daughter looked at each other, and even right now, chill bumps are going up on our skin. And we're like, Sarah, and she's like, Daddy. I'm like, I know. Because what we saw was similar to, not exact, but similar to, enough to freak us out. And as soon as the presentation was over, like, we were over there like, hey, Lyle, check this out. We were talking to him, and from, as they say, the rest is history, because not even a month later, the whatever rendition of the Boggy Creek Festival was the first annual, but it wasn't, it was whatever rendition. I mean, they could have had 10 different versions over the years, but this was the first annual, and he was at this one. And as it goes, we even talked even more, and I was enamored even more. And by the time I had got his book at the Comic-Con, I had read it. By the time I got to the Boggy Creek Festival, that was the first time I met Smokey Crabtree. And, well, Lyle, I was talking to Lyle, and I was like, I kind of want to meet Smokey, and I really didn't know a whole lot. He's like, yeah, you really need to go hang out with him for a little bit or whatever. So I got, that's ridiculous to say, but really, I mean, when Smokey's sitting there and you could sit there and talk to him all day long, yeah, I bought all three of his books. And when it came down to it, I'm not the fastest reader, but I read all three of his books in a week in about 2 days. And I was freaking out the whole time going, I cannot believe this. Because it ain't all about the Fouke Monster and all that. It's about, like, his third book, The Legend of Smokey Crabtree. It's like how he grew up intertwined with the Fouke Monster and all that, and all the sightings his son had, all the things of history of things people may know about Fouke and the monster and all that. But it is, when you're so poor, you don't really hardly ever wear shoes year after year, and you got a pair of shoes or maybe two, and the sisters get to share them back and forth because the boys are like, respecting the sisters and all that kind of thing. And they, every night they sit down to dinner with their plates and they live off the land. So all the food they get pretty much comes out of the river bottoms down there in the Fouke area, Doddridge area, southwest Arkansas corner. And again, it butts right up against the Cattle Lake down there and towards Louisiana. It's a ridiculously cool place to be. But when they eat their food at night, it's off the land, and the plates are upturned lids of 5-gallon buckets.
Dang.
Okay. I don't know how they got them, but that's what their plates are. And there's so much to tell about Smokey and knowing him and stories he's told. It's just insane. And, you go there in late 2013 as me as a fan, and before it's all said and done, very confidently, I can say he was a friend, and he considered me a friend, and I was a pallbearer at his funeral. So that's a long story in itself, but Lyle Blackburn was the guy that got me really deeply into this, and can't appreciate him enough. There you go.
Could you tell the audience a little something about Smokey as far as, some of what you read from his books? Because I'm sure there's one or two people out there that aren't too familiar with the man.
Well, back he passed on January 16th, 2016.
Yes.
And I did somewhat of a tribute in March at the Paranormal Unity Fest in Glen Rose, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I tried to emphasize the legend behind the man behind the legend.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, everybody kind of knows the mystique of the Fouke Monster and how he's involved, kinda. But the bottom line, a few quick facts of things. Some of this is in his books, but I will say that listeners, even though some of this stuff's in the books, I've sat at his dinner table extensively, and he's told me some of these same stories, except more. Bottom line is, he was a master welder as per his trade his whole life in the Union for like 60 years. The family tree of him teaching welding and influence throughout the whole Southwest Arkansas
mm-hmm.
is into the potentially thousands, and that family tree of influence of welding will go on forever. Now, back up. Imagine the Alaskan pipeline,
Mm-hmm.
massive, right? Okay, well, he was so good and so much of considered a master welder, and you'll know the answer as soon as I say it. Who hit the first rivet on the Alaskan pipeline?
Was it Smokey?
Crabtree.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yes. He was beyond wanted, and he traveled to almost every state in the Union, about 18 different countries,
mm-hmm.
all these different contracts of welding throughout the world. Hunted, he was a master hunter, but he was a woodsman beyond compare. Hunted in just about every state in the Union. Any chance he could get, he was hunting. And just for the love of it, once he got established, once
mm-hmm.
he was not the poor grown up fellow.
No longer eating off of a 5-gallon bucket lid.
Oh, I guess all the way till he got his trade. It was forever.
Once he became a welder, he, I imagine, got some real plates.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He got married and, got his job, and, it was real. But when he has two other brothers and him, so 3 brothers and 4 sisters, and mom that is a teacher that I think she gets $29 a month back then.
Mm-hmm.
His dad died when Smokey was 5 years old. The food they ate was off the land. And I could tell another couple of quick stories about Smokey and the fact that him and his brothers noodled catfish out of Boggy Creek before noodling was a thing.
Yeah.
So people, guys would come from, wearing suits or whatever. They're men from the city coming from Fouke and Texarkana, and they'd bring their quarters or whatever. Hey, Crabtree boys, because Crabtree boys had a reputation,
mm-hmm.
many reputations, but they would go down there. Hey, boy, I'll give you a quarter. You give me a couple of fish or whatever. So they would go diving in, go down there. They knew where the fish were, and this was before the alligators were down in the Arkansas wetlands. It's, later on they were supposedly introduced, but
mm-hmm.
they would dive down, stick their hands in them catfish mouth, come up with them. There you go, get their quarters, okay? They would take those quarters to a local businessman who sold guns and shotgun shells and bullets and whatever, and they had a deal that they couldn't afford whole boxes of shotgun shells, but they would break up a few boxes
mm-hmm.
and get 2 or 3 shots, and they'd go out squirrel hunting or whatever hunting, and they'd come home with food, or they'd catch a fish, or, so they were killing hogs. It was just awesome. Duck hunting, many stories about that too, but
mm-hmm.
he didn't probably go for want of food, because he got it off the land, him and his brothers and sisters. They were good shots too.
Uh-huh. Yeah, when you live like that, you've got to be good with a gun, because that's food.
Right. Yeah, they were known for just the crab trees down there in the Falk area, they were known for just being good shots and just living off the land. That's for sure.
I mentioned at the beginning of the show we were going to talk about Falk, Arkansas, and we've kind of gotten away from it a bit. So go ahead and, if you would, just tell the audience a little something about that incident.
Which that I was involved with?
Well, the basics of the story.
Oh, well, the movie? Well, let me just say this. The bottom line about that movie, many things about the Falk monster. It's called the Jonesville monster or something, way back in the day. But when certain things started happening more in Falk, it became the Falk monster. And, whenever Smokey Crabtree's son, Lynn Crabtree, had his sighting, then it became known throughout the land. And then the Texarkana Gazette and the Beanfield, it became the Falk monster. And, in general, the Jonesville people down there, which is down in Doddridge, it's a little even more southwest into Arkansas. But suffice it to say, that movie would not have been made, or if it was going to be made, it wasn't going to be made the same way it was without Smokey Crabtree and the Crabtree family. That's a fact, bar none. You love him, you hate him, doesn't matter. That town, back when that movie was made, was 500 and some people. Right now it's 864 or something like that.
It's getting big.
Well, not very. I mean,
I know.
40 years?
I've been there.
Yeah, 40 years, you might have added one per year. Okay. Point is, it ain't a bad town per se, but you don't go in there and befriend a lot of people without knowing somebody. And then, oh, hey, you're part of the family. Everything's great. But you ain't, besides the Monster Mart, you just don't go down there and just start snooping around. People are going to ask you pretty heavily, what you doing? And back in the day, you could imagine it got a little bit worse. But Smokey reassured the town folk, which a lot of the town folk, which you can read in Lyle's book, scene by scene, who's real and who's not, the town folk were in the movie. And none of that would have happened if it wasn't for Smokey and Charles Pierce, doing the movie and really Smokey telling these people, oh, it's going to be okay. And that's the hubbub about the whole thing, where people kind of like, I don't know if they really like Smokey, because some of that went wrong when Charles Pierce took his movie to Texarkana and then out to Hollywood. And, some of the town folk feel like they didn't see anything from it. So that's some of the hard feelings.
Unfortunately, that does happen. The movie that we're referring to is The Legend of Boggy Creek, and I just happen to have on the official T-shirt right now. It seemed like the right thing to wear for the show.
Yeah.
Are you
and really go ahead?
Are you interested in other things out of the ordinary, UFOs, ghosts, anything like that?
Well, here's the thing. Since my interest and knowledge and just relationships dealing with Bigfoot have grown just about exponentially since I met Lyle back in 2013, my 100% focus is on the Sasquatch Bigfoot phenomenon and just continuing that, if you were to say enthusiasm and research and discussion and group involvement. But here's what I would say. I've seen enough in this and in other things to know there's the hoaxers out there. There's the guys we know are full of it. But good and well, if there's 100%, 1,000 sightings, supposedly, maybe 100 of them are for sure and not a misidentification. So all these other things like UFOs, ghosts, and all these different things, same thing. 1,000, 100, 900 maybe. And I'm not sure about it, but 900 maybe misidentifications. 100's probably 100% true. So if somebody who is into that was to say, "Hey, Bryan, let's go on a ghost hunt," or "Hey, there's UFO sightings here all the time. We're going to go investigate." I'm not going to sit here and say, "You know what? No, I don't believe it."
Mm-hmm.
Here's what I will do. I would be interested in being their wingman. That's fine. But my focus is on Bigfoot and the Sasquatch phenomenon and camping and having fun.
Do you belong to any groups?
Well, as far as Facebook groups, Jeff Stewart and I have, and we've said Jeff Stewart, but some other people may know him as the Crypto Hulk, which is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
That is a cool name, Jeff Crypto Hulk Stewart. We've got a Facebook group called Monsters, Mysteries, and Mayhem. And, we're both busy. I'm in retail. Ultimately, our goal was to have a working, which we had a radio show for a short time, working website, maybe a database, but we're so busy that some of that didn't happen, but still it's a great Facebook group.
Mm-hmm.
Also a group that's headed up by Craig Wool-Eater, the Texas Bigfoot Research Center group. It's kind of on a pause right now for the last couple of years, so I'm not 100% sure if that's the permanent status. We're back to a pause mode, but under that group and Craig Wool-Eater and Monica Rollins and Gino Napoli, I'm probably saying his name wrong. Napoli, I know, he's Italian.
Yes.
But they head up the Texas Bigfoot Bigfoot Conference in Jefferson, Texas.
Yes.
So that's been the last 3 years, I think. So that's pretty cool. But coming in 2017, which nobody may have heard about, is the International Cryptozoological Research Alliance. So ICRA, International Cryptozoological Research Alliance. And at this point, it's been a secret groups and negotiations and discussions back and forth. And even from our dealings, I probably hadn't even told you about this, Chris, but there's a lot of big names, and all I could say is just look for this group in 2017 cranking up. And, I got it on the little site now. It's talking about the ICRA. It does not care about money, likes, or views on Facebook, but we do care about cryptozoology and people. We are not here to sell anything, take reports, or conduct analysis. There are already people in the community doing a great job with that sort of thing. We're here to simply provide a platform for meaningful exchange and to recognize those individuals, organizations, and institutions who are setting good examples by doing the right thing. We are here because of the passion for cryptozoology, and it's right now 30, 40 members. There's 3 groups within there. One's an advisory board, big names, expedition-type people, the director's office, which handles the organization, and the president's office, which is the go out and shake hands and be the representatives throughout America and the world, and North America in general.
Is that just on
I'm
Facebook?
In the president's office. Say again?
International Cryptozoological Research Alliance. Is that on Facebook, or do you all have your own website?
That's in the future. Radio shows in the future. There is groups within groups of it, like the Western, International Cryptozoology, the Northern, the Canadian, the South American. So I don't know if there's about upwards of 8 groups that have really, they have been live, but this whole thing is kind of quiet right now until we really start having some radio shows and start explaining it better and expanding it on Facebook, and then we'll start with websites and podcasts and whatever. So anyway, that's kind of fun and interesting because things I've been involved with before now have been like, oh, pretty cool. But these groups are international and very big name national. And I have to leave it at that because I don't want to
Alrighty.
talk for anybody, because
Well,
it's really starting up immediately. Like right now, it's been there
Mhm.
secret for a little while, but
once
anyway,
once they get a
that's
little
the main group.
once they get a little more traction under their heels, maybe they'll come on the show and we'll have a complete hour on just their International Cryptozoological Research Alliance.
Yeah,
If you know
it's
anybody at the
a
top,
big
let them
deal.
know.
And say again?
If you know anybody at the top, let them know.
Okay, I will, and yes, I do know.
All right.
And I'm quite extensively one of the 3 big branches. And again, I'm not one of the expeditions hiking up the Himalayas kind of a guy, but I would say that I'm decent on the relationships kind of a guy that can, like me talking to you or talking to whoever in California. I mean, I know a lot of different people, and under that aspect of things, there's people throughout America and that can go to conferences. Like I can't just go to the conference in Ohio, like, oh, let me just go.
Yeah.
Even though I went to that this past year, and that's a whole nother story. But, like the 50-year anniversary of Paris and Gimlin. Unfortunately, there's no way I'm going to that, but there might be a representative of this group that will be going there and shaking hands and say, hey, we're the ICRA, and just spreading the word that way a little bit. So.
Well, we're going to take a real quick break. We kind of skipped the one in the middle because you're being too interesting, so I just decided to let you run with it. So we're going to take a very brief pause here, play a couple commercials. We will be right back after this, so don't go away.
All righty.
You're listening to Arkanasa Radio. Do you have skin? Would you like to take better care of it? Call Lourdes James, independent beauty consultant, and set up an appointment. Call 723-3019. If your vision isn't what it used to be, and you're not sure you're seeing Bigfoot or just your neighbor mowing his lawn, stop on by Del Norte Optical, 107 Calle del Norte, just across the street from the Embassy Suites. You should be able to see what you're looking at. Looking for a great cup of coffee? Swing on by the Organic Man Coffee Truck, 1002 Iturbide, suite number 7. Not a coffee drinker? They have hot chocolate, hot tea, and sometimes muffins and cookies. It's a great place to meet your friends for a conversation or curl up in the corner with a good book. The Organic Man Coffee Truck. Life is too short to drink bad coffee.
No, don't say goodbye. Stay with us. This is Arkanasa Radio. Quédate con nosotros. Estás escuchando Arkanasa Radio.
You're listening to Strange Things with Chris James. And we're back with Bigfoot researcher Bryan Impey. Now, you were in a movie. What's that?
Oh, I said, how's it going?
You were in a movie, and it kind of surprised the heck out of me when I was sitting there at home watching it, and I looked up and I said, I know that guy. That's Bryan, and I immediately sent you a text message. Tell the listeners about that.
Yeah, it is kind of funny because I've had many people, I don't know who, but somebody says, hey, it's Empty Squatch, whatever. But it's kind of, I was on a calling into some radio show, or I was on it, I'm not sure, but I first met Michael Hall on there and talked a little bit about the movie. And, I'm not an actor, I'm not anything like that, and I knew what was going on, but he's like, hey, they're looking for some extras. And he's like, hook up with Vicky Stansfield. She's in Jefferson, Texas. So suffice it to say, me and my son, I mean, it was on a day that I had my son. He was, I don't know, 6 or 7 at the time. And so I was like, hey, can he be an extra too? Because I have no choice. So we got some, I don't know, 50s type, 60s plain clothes and did the best we could to blend in. Went to Salvation Army and just kind of got some older stuff. Anyway, suffice to say, we went down there on one gigantic, about a 12-hour day. So I had met Michael, got in touch with Vicky, and said, hey, you can be a extra. So we got to be in all the in-town scenes. So I never got to see the actual Bigfoot that was in the movie because I was in the in-town scenes. But I will say that I did see it in some pictures and some things that were shared, but I mean, I didn't get to have, but that's fine. But it was all the discussions that him and his wife and family were having in the church. Kind of, he was drawing pictures. And what was really cool about Michael Hall, he was one of the co-producers, I guess. He would say, okay, we're going to be lining up here. Go sit right back there. So every time the in-town scenes were there, like we were sitting right off the end of the pew, right where David Ford was sitting. So we'd have never done that if Michael Hall wouldn't have set us up, which was kind of cool. I really like Michael. He's a pretty cool guy. So in the fight scene and in the cafe and all that, again, he said, okay, David Ford and all them are going to be sitting right here. You sit right behind him. So we were sitting right behind David Ford. And, yeah, you know, I tell this story, but you know, the fight scene in that where David Ford and Tony Gibson are going at it. As much as this is a little bit behind the scenes and fun to say, I guess, I never even saw the fight. Okay. They put a camera on a tripod right in front of our face, and they kind of did, okay, ready, go. And David Ford was running around the whole cafe going, okay, I'm going to be right here. And I'm just having these like, oh my God, reactions. Like, I put his face in the potatoes over here, boom, and blah, 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 blah. I hit him over. And so we're kind of following all around, and I never even saw the fight. So that was kind of cool. Still, even though I'm not an actor, I got to do that.
How many people can say they were actually in a movie?
I know. Not too many. And I don't know how the final version of it came out, but the Skookum movie, it needed some extreme editing, but Jeff Meldrum's in there, and I don't know, a few other actors that you might recognize. Michael Hall's in there. I think David Ford's in there. But I wasn't involved in that one at all. It was already a done thing. But me and a couple other fellows, Doyle Holmes, Johnny Holmes, a guy named Greg Moorhead. But Doyle Holmes, you'll recognize him from Finding Bigfoot, Monsters and Mysteries down in Doddridge. Anyway, we went to the Monster Mart all dressed in khaki, and we each told a story about our things. So as a movie ends and it's running the credits, like our stories are supposed to be on there. Don't know if it's going to make it to the final version, but I was filmed for that.
Well, hopefully you get lucky. The movie that we were referring to is called Something in the Woods, and if you'd be interested in getting a copy, go to littlecherubentertainment.com/something-in-the-woods, and you can get you a copy. It is well worth watching. It's a family-friendly movie. You don't have to worry. There's no swearing. There's no nastiness in the movie. And the fight scene was pretty much anything you'd see in a normal restaurant these days.
I don't think you see any blood.
No.
And
it was a lot of pushing and shoving and yelling, but nothing really violent.
I will say that movie, in backing you up on that, the family aspect of it is like telling a story at the beginning and setting things up, and then really the sightings and things ramp up and just don't stop ramping up till the very end. You're pretty much with your mouth open going, oh my God.
Yes.
That was incredible.
And the truly amazing thing about it is this movie is actually based on 2 true events that happened in the area. And a lot of the scenes that you'll see, that's Jefferson, Texas. Even the restaurant is actually there.
Right. Oh, yeah. You go down to Jefferson, Texas, and you'll be like, wait a minute. You'll be head jerking all the time going, that was in the movie. Mm-hmm. That was in the movie. That's the church. One of the big storylines of the whole thing is off of the Cowman-Acopolis Beach. And that was not anywhere near Texas, but it was filmed in Jefferson, Texas. Yeah. Yeah. I've got a review on it, but, it's 2 different, I think something of Ruby Ridge, but then the main thing, really, if you look at the Cowman-Acopolis Beach, it really is, that's the main one about the kids and the sighting and the hogs, and it's really that. That's the main one.
How many Bigfoot conferences do you imagine you've attended since you started?
3, the 3 Boggy Creek festivals.
No, I mean
and
Bigfoot altogether.
Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4 or 5 different ones.
And your wardrobe makes up nothing but Bigfoot T-shirts.
Yeah, or Hulk or Superman or whatever.
You shop at the same place as I do.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And you know what? I do want one idea out there. As much as people are all over the spectrum on what they believe, I want everybody to know what I believe in. Now, I have an open mind about anything, but I'm allowed to believe what I believe, too. So here's what I believe. Bigfoot is not paranormal, not from a UFO, not interdimensional. No, forget it. No. And I know it's going to make a lot of people mad. Well, no. Well, if they knew so much or whatever, I just feel like it would be the Planet of the Apes if it was such a thing. The technology would be ridiculous, and they would be telling us, hey, go put some food in my bowl. Oh, so I think that's what I think. And as far as my belief, again, it's an upright hominid that is just outside of the primate world, outside of the human world, but, it's just something undiscovered and probably more human-like than anything in the, at least features,
Any advice you'd pass on to somebody that's interested in getting into Bigfoot?
As much as I can say, be real, find out who is real, have an interest. Okay, the sightings are so few and far between, except for the people that say, oh, they're living in my backyard, whatever. Okay, but the sightings are so far and few between or whatever that have a love of nature and have a love of camping, have a love of hunting, have a love of just outdoors. Things sometimes happen. Unless you look up and you live on Boggy Creek and you're able to actually go out looking for things, well, first of all, you better have a gun down there with all the hogs and nastiness and things that'll jump up on you. But that's my advice. Yes, we all love Bigfoot, but don't go, like Hollywood, finding Bigfoot. Yeah, that's awesome, but the real world is you don't have time, you got jobs. If you have time for something, go out for the love of nature. Don't, if you go looking, fine, but golly, the percentage is so ridiculously skewed the other way. It'd be boring to go out there and not love nature. Now, how about that?
Fantastic. And how about a book? Maybe a book in your future?
You know what? I would say probably, but I've got a decent amount of people right now that are getting me to, because I am an enthusiast, I am a customer per se, and, so decent amount of people, including Jeff Stewart, doing an autobiography and twisting in a little bit of the Sabine thing and his sightings and stuff. But I'm telling him, as he's writing, I'm telling him this is how I would rewrite it and what interests me. Now, I think I'm so new into all this that I don't have anything to say pretty much, except I don't want it to be like, oh, he's off the coattails of somebody else. It could be perceived that way, and I get it. But I do know that I know a tremendous amount of interesting people, and I'll at some point have enough to write my own book. That's probably true.
Well, don't hang up. I'm going to end the show now. Those of y'all listening out there in the world, that was Bryan Impey from Texarkana, Texas, talking about Bigfoot. Once again, next week we will be back on Saturday, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. If you enjoyed the show, check out our archives at strangethings.podomatic.com. You can pick up all the past shows there anytime you'd like to listen to them. And until further notice, they're all free of charge. So this has been Chris James with Strange Things.
Are you coming to the tree where they strung up a man? They say murder 3. Strange things that happen here, how stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree?